Welcome to those of you joining us online. That would be Peter and Rye. And I just want to know if you can hear us well. Would you let us know that?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Yep, all good.
You're right. That's great. All right. Materials are online for this meeting. You'll have to look in two different places. They're under Planning Commission meeting documents and agenda. And then over on Planning Commission project page for the zoning bylaw, you will find the documents for today's meeting related to the zoning bylaw modernization project. So, but our agenda includes it all. So I just will begin by introducing myself, and when I'm doing that, I'm also doing a voice recognition for the note-taking software. Otherwise, all of the statements are attributed to me. And it's helpful to know that other people, so that works. So I'll just ask you to speak up loudly, so you can be heard, not only by the AI companion, but by everybody in the room. Sue Coakley, Chair of the Planning Commission.
Vanessa Long, Planning Commission.
Lisa Chase, citizen.
And Advisory Committee member.
Advisory Committee member.
Michael McConnell, Wyndham Regional Commission.
Bill Bannister, Planning Commission.
And online, Peter?
Peter Podgy, Advisory Committee member.
Can you say hello, Rye?
Hi, Rye Wapeluki, zoning something or other committee.
Advisory Committee member.
Thank you. I cannot remember any of the names of the things that I'm in. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so next I will welcome all. I'm glad you're here. I will note that a number of people said they would not be able to attend tonight's meeting, and Andrew Morrison, who's on the Planning Commission, will be joining us late, but he's not ready to join us right now, but he will be joining us. I'll be taking minutes for the meeting because the clerk for the Planning Commission is away this week. And I have to find a pen that works, because I can take. There, try this one, thank you. She has. Okay. Notebook open and. Okay. So, we will, let me ask, are there any agenda items that are not on the agenda that we need to speak to this evening? Hearing none, there won't be any. Then we'll be reviewing for approval draft meeting minutes. We have them for September 2nd. The ones that we have for September 30th just are arrived today, so we can't really approve them yet, but we can reference them. They have to be here for a couple of days before we can approve them. We'll talk about past meeting action items, an update on housing strategy, 802 Homes for All application that we made. The comprehensive village plan, we're going to have an update from Vanessa about committee formation and next steps. Bill is going to be telling us about the Putney Landing sidewalk project, the project or update on that. That project is moving forward. And then we will get to the zoning bylaw modernization by 7:05. And we'll be talking about the status of the update process and next steps. Talk about feedback from the September 30th meeting, which is why the meeting notes are somewhat helpful about that. We'll talk about a meeting agenda for our next and last community meeting on the 14th of October. We'll talk about the Forest Block Overlay District draft research plan, which is related to the 1014 meeting, and go over the project schedule and next steps. That is our agenda for this evening. Any questions? The meeting packet that I handed out has everything in the order that we're going to take them, so hopefully that is useful. And has everybody signed in? I know I haven't, but has everybody else done that? Okay,
I'll just,
and if you could take care of the folks online, thank you very much. Okay. Now, the next thing we have are minutes for approval from September 2nd. Really, it's really kind of comical. The ones that are online say July 2nd, not September 2nd, and I have to tell you, that threw me for a loop, thinking, how did the wrong minutes get there? But in fact, the only thing that's wrong is the word July, but to say September, because it says September everywhere else. So these are the correct minutes, though I will note that we need a motion to approve them with a revision to call them the September 2nd minutes on the first page. I will invite the planning commission members to look at the minutes, which have been out for a while, from September 2nd, entertain a motion to approve, and I will note that we have to make that one correction.
Motion to approve minutes?
second,
Okay, all right, 19 minutes. Okay, are there any comments or changes other than correcting the date on the first page?
That was fun, yeah.
These actions items are caught or captured in our action item report, so we'll visit those. You're good?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, ready to,
All in favor of approving the motions with the correction of the date on the first page? Aye. All in favor, aye. Okay, great. All right. All right, the next, we're not going to be approving the minutes from the 30th, so I'll just call attention to them. They're actually most important when we get to the zoning bylaw project, so I think I'll just let you know they're here. We'll approve them at a future date when they've been up for several days. We'll now move on to the action item report, which is a one-page document. And note that many things are underway. The work on leading implementation of the comprehensive village plan is underway, and Vanessa will give us a report further on that this evening. I do have to develop a town plan status report for the select board by mid-October. That would be this week, or the report next week, so I'll be doing that. We are preparing a public review draft of zoning bylaws. It's not going to be by mid-September. It's not going to be done. It'll be done by mid-October. So it's a process. I'm doing that. Finalizing the agenda for the September 30th community meeting, done. We had the meeting. Reviewing definitions, number 5, in the draft zoning bylaws and subdivision regulations, is an ongoing process. It is something that Mike McConnell began, and he's going to be assisting to some degree, myself and Pip to finish that. So that task is underway. Assisting the town manager to advance employer-assisted housing solutions with Discover Putney. The conversations have begun. And same thing with number 7, to advance the PC recommended housing strategy, to renew and expand existing housing with shared housing coordination services. And I will be giving a report on an application for a project that we submitted that I hoped was going to help with that. Then we've got our meeting rooms reserved for the kickoff of the CVP Project Advisory Committee for here on the 11th of December. And then I'm working with Phil and Andrew to develop a research plan for Forest Block. We'll be talking about that tonight. So, yeah, that's the research plan for Forest Block Overlay District. And then still working on outstanding minutes that seems to never make it to the top. I am tracking the status of the Encore Energy 2 megawatt battery project. I still think they have not gone to the Public Utility Commission, so they're way behind on that project. I'm not sure what's going on, but that has not advanced, to my knowledge. And I have let, Anand know that we'd like to have, the Wyndham Regional Commission Technical Assistance Scope of Work for the commission to look at, and we'll need that for the spring. And we'll be recommending for select board approval when it's time to do the enhanced energy plan. Which will help us with projects like the battery project that wants to be sited in Putney. I'm going kind of quickly, but I think most of these things are familiar. Any questions on the action plan? Okay. Next item is an opportunity that I prepared an application for the recommendation of the Regional Commission. Mike brought this to our attention, that the Agency of Commerce and Economic Development was looking for development-ready communities to work with to actually develop infill patterns and develop housing options, work to actually do them, identify ways to overcome barriers to implementing them. And I thought that would be a perfect complement to the Comprehensive Village Plan project. So I did put that application in coordination with the town manager. And we were not selected. Only 3 communities in the state of Vermont were selected, and we were not among them. And we really didn't have ready the development incentives and other infrastructure that other towns had. So we can learn from them, but we did not get selected. But it's an example of being ready to try to access resources that will help Putney with our housing solutions. So that was earlier, that was in
Do you
September.
remember the towns that were awarded?
Yes,
Manchester, Hartford. And Essex, maybe?
yeah, I think that's right. Those were the 3 that were selected.
So. a little
So
bit larger,
nothing in
yeah,
southern
resource.
Vermont, I would say.
Yeah.
Hartford is, north, it's, Whiteburg Junction, closer to that area.
Yeah.
So, I did make a plea that we would like to follow what they're doing. And, I heard from the chair of the planning commission in Londonderry that they want to follow it as well. So we may find some way to stay informed.
It seems like an opportunity to coordinate more with Rockingham too.
Yes, possibly with Rockingham, that would be, yes. It's really fun to get a chance to talk to Gary Fox about that. So we didn't get selected, but it's still a resource. The result of it will be helpful to us, and maybe we can learn along with them. And adapt some things. So that was the latest thing on housing. Next thing in your list here is a list of commission projects. This is something that the town managers encouraged me to keep with the select board. So I want to make sure that you see this. You saw a version of this in the September monthly meeting notes, but you can see that we're doing zoning bylaw modernization, which is ending at the end of February. You now see part 2 to do the forest block research, which at the moment extends to the end of September. We don't really have a work plan yet, so that's the commitment to be done by then. Maybe we could be done sooner, but we'll be talking more about that tonight. The comprehensive village plan is on track to begin with our kickoff of an advisory committee in December, and then have a consultant on board in March, and hopefully we can be done with that at the end of June with recommendations for the select board. The Putney Landing walkway is really a project of the town to implement, but the town manager has asked Pip and myself, who helped write the feasibility study and led that project, to help implement that, and we'll get a little update from Pip about that a little later. Enhanced energy plan is scheduled for next spring. Needs to be confirmed, but that's our idea. And most recently, the town manager reminded me that the town plan calls for a comprehensive recreation plan, and asked if I would assist with a municipal planning grant due in November, so that could begin next summer. So we'll see. I'm working on that while she's away. So that's projects that are ongoing. We still need to do more with housing needs assessment, action plan implementation. And there's a number of things in discussion to do that. Any questions?
No questions, but I did just want to say that I appreciate how the Forest Block, part 2 has been broken out there. And I wanted to express gratitude to the advisory committee for hopefully sticking with us through part 2 after you've already been through part 1 and probably had an end in sight. So thank you.
Yes, well, thank you for that, Vanessa. We'll talk more about that, I think, when we get to that item
Yeah.
today. Comments, questions from anybody? If anybody observed that it looks a little breathless, it is. It feels like a lot. And I'm hoping that advisory committees can help pick up and help us assist with this project, particularly outreach to the community.
Sue, you might wanna contact Jeff in our office about the recreation plan application. you're doing.
Okay.
I bet he would have some pretty strong ideas about that.
Okay,
What is Jeff's last name?
Nugent,
Oh, that Jeff, sorry.
yeah,
yes, that Jeff.
I figured that's what you meant, but thank you for asking that.
Who recreates all the time.
He does, he's a very similar.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that help. And I have, Karen gave to me copies of materials from other towns that have done this, so I'm plowing through those to try to get my head around that, but it's great to have people to talk to. That's wonderful. Thank you. I will just say generally for that, I've recommended to the town manager that if that project moves forward, that the project advisory committee for that really be the nascent board for the recreation department that she hopes to achieve. Because the comprehensive plan is a great way, is a strategic thinking piece to bring people together around what to do and how to do and prioritize it. So she appreciates that. And but I don't think there's time between now and November 12th or whatever it is to engage people. That will be here in a month. So thank you for that. All right. Now we come to the part of the agenda that is about the zoning bylaw modernization. Look at that, we're ahead of schedule.
Skipped a couple pieces.
Oh, I did, thank you, that's why we're ahead of schedule. Comprehensive village plan, would you like to give us, I need it in front of me. Thank you, and reminders. Thank you, Vanessa. Give us an update, please.
Yeah, so the project advisory committee nomination process has begun. We did some tabling at the Discover Putney event a week or two ago. And that brought in at least one nomination through the online form. I don't know if you've been receiving any others over email.
Have not.
Okay, so still working on that. And then I think that we had to pitch for nominations at the zoning bylaws committee public meeting last week
Mhm.
too. And some passion in that audience, so hopefully that will result in more committee members or nominations.
Yeah.
But really want to encourage everybody here to consider putting in a nomination. And we're also sending out letters to invite nominations to all of the folks that submitted letters of support for the grant. Any more ideas about, how to kind of cultivate the nominations really, are really welcome. And then the goal is to vet people that are nominated and bring a short list of potential committee members to the next planning commission meeting in November for review, so that we can invite folks to the December 11th, right?
Yeah.
December 11th meeting to do the kickoff. That's about it.
Yeah, and we have in mind to do some research, and again, Mike, if you all have ideas at Wyndham Regional about other comprehensive village plans, I know that Chris Campany has offered directly to talk with us about that, so we want to set up a meeting with him to get his suggestions. We had some real interest in it, so we're reaching out to Chris Campany. Yeah, among others. Thank you, Vanessa. Any questions for Vanessa? Suggestions? Offers of help? Good. Small crowd tonight. I will just also say that in submitting a nomination, it doesn't have to be for yourself.
Right,
You can nominate somebody you think.
anybody you want.
Bam, bam.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Anyone
submit just one, it can be lots of people.
Yeah. And you can approach people about it.
Yeah.
You know, especially those of you who have been on an advisory committee, you know what we do and the role and how you sit with the commission to think about these things together. So, I think that is helpful. Okay. No other conversation about that. Let's talk about Putney Landing sidewalk project.
Just looked at my calendar. We have a tentative date, you, me and Karen, don't we, to?
When she gets back, a
Yeah.
week from
Yeah,
Friday.
you know whether it was formalized, but.
Yes.
The process is that, we've chosen to select a municipal assistance, engineering assistance from one of 5 firms that are pre-qualified. And I sent out an email 2 weeks ago to each one of those firms, very rough description of the project, just to see if they had time in their schedules to work with us. 4 did, 1 didn't, is my memory. The next step is there will be a meeting, Sue, Karen and me, and we will review the qualifications of 3 of those firms. And the assumption is that they're all pre-qualified and vetted. So just based on the criteria that we will establish at that meeting, we can pick one and begin to have a conversation with that firm. And that'll be in the kickoff of the relationship between us and a engineering firm for the start of the project. And that firm will assist us in picking a design engineer for the firm, for the project. So a couple weeks, we should have some action.
You should.
Yeah,
I think
and then
we-
we'll reach out to one of those firms, and I think we'll all start to move forward over the course of the winter and into the spring. That's the status at the moment.
They're all pre-qualified by V-Trans. And I think one of the things that will be important for the schedule of the project is we will move at the speed of the V-Trans. However, that affects the project. It's a small project, so we're hoping that because it's so small, that it can have some momentum to move forward. We will learn more about that, as we have, engineering firm on board. Comments, questions, suggestions? I will just note as an aid to that, separate but related to it. The town does not have anybody on the Wyndham Regional Commission Transportation Committee. And that is where priorities are talked about and set for what projects might be done by V-Trans. And we want more than just a crosswalk out here. So I'm actively recruiting people who could be on the Wyndham Regional Commission Transportation Committee. So I hope that we're sitting here next time, I will have somebody whose hand has gone up and is ready to do it. I think there's some interest. So that will only be to our benefit to have somebody at the table there.
More than a crosswalk, meaning,
Yes, the recommendation from the planning commission for the Putney Landing walkway was to have a part 1, part 2. You're gonna begin to see that I have part 1, part 2 as a way to do tough projects. Part 1 is to do the simple signaled crosswalk somewhere between, out between the library and the banks. And that will be very much like the crosswalk at the Putney Central School, so that you can activate it and a light will come up. It needs to be placed in the proper place. It will be also, there's also a sidewalk or walkway that will be appropriate for people who have mobility issues to be able to get from Old Depot Road to the crosswalk. So somewhere between the 2 banks will be a walkway. And that is to be determined exactly where that will be. A lot has to do with curb cuts and where this all can go and distance away from traffic coming up from the interstate and all of that. So that's what the project will come up with. Part two is to have a different intersection than we have at Route 5 and Putney Landing Road. But that requires a different conversation with V-Trans, and V-Trans has already been informed, but that is something we're looking for as a town. But that was going to take a long time, and we felt that this crosswalk was a project that had broad support, and let's get that going and then work on part two to deal with a safe way for pedestrians and cyclists to navigate Putney Landing Road and Route 5. So that's why there's a part two. We only have funding to do the part one. Any other questions about this? Comments? Thank you very much, Phil. Okay. Zoning bylaw project update. So let's say, where are we in the project? We're in the project of trying to finalize what the changes will be to the zoning bylaws and the subdivision regulations. We're still identifying some issues. We do have a list of issues that we received on the 19th of September from the town attorney. We're still working through those. Pip, Mike and I will have a meeting about it this Friday, and to discuss responses to them. We also have a list of comments we received the same day from the town manager. And we have a number of other outstanding issues that need to be worked through to make sure that we have done the updates that we plan to do in stage one of that. I'm in the process of putting together a sort of a checklist of all the issues and comments, so that we make sure that we actually get to them and have a way to resolve them all. And still working on getting a public draft version of the bylaws up. I'd hoped to have that by September. We were under resourced to develop it, and at this point, that project is on my desk, and it has been difficult to find any time I can do it. But that is happening. So one of the things that is a limitation for us is that we're getting low on time in the contract with Wyndham Regional Commission. So Pip and I are stepping up to take on a number of the tasks to be able to do the update. We'll be meeting with Mike on Friday to figure out how to make best use of the remaining time in the contract from Mike and possibly Sue as to if that makes sense, to the best way to get things done. So that is sort of an overall status. It's going to be a big lift to have this ready by November, but that's our plan. And I would hope to have the bylaw public review draft out next week in time for the meeting on the 14th. Not that we'll be talking much about it, but it's sort of a deadline for myself to have it out. And we have a few issues that we're ready to talk about tonight. One that we'll be talking about is looking at the issue of district density. But before, and we'll also spend some time, and I really hope we can dig into talking about the stage 2 project, the forest block preservation policy project. In your packet is this 2-page scope of work that I put together back after our last meeting in September to map out what do we need to learn about and a little bit about the process, but it is not a work plan. It is really a very high level research plan, scope of work that I think requires more input and conversation. And indeed, I would say we'll talk about it tonight. And recommend that we talk about it at the public meeting next week, because we will have attention from the public, and it would be great to hear what people would like to make sure, to make sure that we're researching the right things. And that will inform development of an actual work plan and identification of resources that will help us do it, so we can have a real schedule to do it. So this is the first step. So that's, you'll see that on the agenda, the proposed agenda for next Tuesday. And we can talk more, we'll talk more about that, but that's the overview of where we are. We want to complete stage one. We need to be substantively done, in November. So that in December, we can be approving, planning commission can be approving a draft of the bylaws and the subdivision regulations for public hearing in January. So that's a sort of overview of where the project is. I want to invite Pip to add anything to that overview that I might have missed. You're closer to the ground on a number of the substantive issues, so.
The forest block.
I'm just talking about, I'm doing an overview of where we are in stage one and then stage two. So we're not jumping into the research plan yet. I'm just saying, this is where we are in the project. Do you want to add anything else about, what we need to do, or?
No, I think as a overview, this is fine.
Yeah.
We did have an experience with landowners who came ready for battle, assuming that we were going to propose a forest block reg, and it was a good conversation to let them know that they had been heard. Maybe not the specific individuals that showed up at that meeting, but their peers, and that we had taken into consideration a number of these issues. I wrote to Sue after that meeting. My takeaway was that there's a really significant difference in some of the way the state approaches development goals, with the somewhat idealized notion of a vital village center surrounded by a working landscape. And the further away you get from the center, the more rural and that landscape might become. The reality for a number of residents is that their ideal home site is one that has many woods around it, maybe a view ideally, doesn't have very many neighbors, maybe you can't even see your neighbors, and provides them with the sort of rural enclave feeling, very separated from other folks, close enough to get on with your life and get your kids to school, etc. And that's sometimes a tough set of design goals to reconcile. And I think it's a good conversation to keep in mind that there's a significant difference in the idea about what is the best development plan for Vermont. And I think that it's reflected on a number of levels, but we're seeing one right now, which is that the rural residential development outside of the village center is a goal for many people. And if you have that goal, you also may be a bit prejudiced against life in the village. That somehow that's an urban, problematic, noisy, troubling way to be in the world. So it's an interesting contrast, and one that for me has been on my mind for many, many, many years, since first being introduced to these large scale development goals in Vermont. And it at times ran counter to what I would like for myself, which is yeah, I would like that lovely place up there on the hill, without too many neighbors. So, you know, I get it, I totally get it. So I think it's an interesting conversation and we'll see where it goes.
In a nutshell, I think what Pip is saying is what he's observed as chair of the Development Review Board over the years. These are the projects that people are doing, is building in the rural landscape. And so how do we balance that with the need to protect the forest blocks from fragmentation? So it's not an easy thing to do. And I will also just say, and Carrie said something that I thought was really important to keep in mind at the end of our last meeting. We were talking about this on September 2nd. She said, remember that many of the landowners who have large parcels of land that are in the forest block area have been great champions for conservation, and maintaining that as a natural area. And to always keep that in mind. And I think that's so important in this conversation as we talk about values and land use and how do we meet different needs in our community and balancing these things. So it is good to take this step back. And I would say that Jim Oliver, who couldn't be here this evening, wrote to me to say he really thinks we've done the right thing to put these on two different tracks and to go into it. I will also say that since we made that decision, the Agency of Natural Resources is offering some webinars on forest block overlay districts and how to do this. One on October 17th and then on November 18th. And I'll make sure you all have that. I should have provided that link in the materials here. I recommend that we all go to those. And I think part of the challenge is that it is a new policy relatively. There's only a few communities who have implemented it. And it's a big lift, you know, given the issues that we just talked about, the different needs in the community. What are the pathways to do this? So I'm glad that we're taking more time, and I'm hoping that the state does more than 2 webinars to help us understand options of how to do it and how to do an analysis to understand the impacts of it, both, you know, costs and benefits. You know? But we do have to get through phase 1, and there's a number of issues there. And we're not prepared to really go into them, but before we jump into the forest block research plan, I wondered if you wanted to spend a few minutes talking about your district density worksheet, because this came out of conversation really at last week's community meeting, when we began to think further about the density requirements, which are otherwise in a quick reference table, the number is 340. It's the one on density. I have it right here. Should we give it to everybody? You bring it out with me. So
340.
it's, yeah. The 40s in here. Okay. For those of you online, this is materials that were available at the workshop last week. So it's the district use tables. So if you look at last week's meeting folder, you'll find that. So anyway, Pip, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you put together here. Everybody has it. I sent it around. I think everybody has it. And how that's different from where we were when we looked at density in table 340. Actually, it's the very last page of the handout.
Mike, this lot coverage, current zoning, where that's in the current reg somewhere?
No, that's new.
The one in current, it says current Putney zoning bylaws, lot area.
Yeah, that's a little confusing because there wasn't a.
So there's two
Yeah,
tables
so-
here,
so the
current
kind of-
zoning
and this is
bylaws
a-
and proposed changes.
this lot coverage is a way to approach density. Another way to approach density is to just see what is the maximum number of residential units permitted in a district. And in some of our zoning districts, previously, all of our zoning districts had a cap. It was not open-ended. You couldn't do a multi-unit development as a permitted use. You'd have to, I really wasn't prepared to go sort of into depth about the details of this.
I think I'd give us a sense of what you've done here relative to what you saw here.
What I did was look at the existing regs and extract from it the number of dwelling units that would be permitted per acre. It wasn't an explicit number, but it was a number that would have to be calculated at some point, because if you wanted to do a PRD, the PRD starting point is you can go up to the density of development in that district. So you'd have to come up with a number. So we in the past were typically able to do that by just looking at what's the most number of residences you could legally build under zoning. And you'd look at the minimum lot size and the maximum number of units that were permitted for that lot size and just do the math. And so that's basically what I've done in this spreadsheet, is I've gone back and used the numbers that we had for our previous districts and used them as a reference point for all of the new districts. So I haven't varied significantly from the density. The proposal hasn't varied significantly from the density that you would have found in the previous districts. There is a difference in that we are allowing multi-unit dwellings, which are 5 or more, but there isn't a cap. It doesn't end at 6 or 7 or 8. It really is dependent upon the developer's understanding of the site and the capabilities of the site in terms of dimensions and setbacks, et cetera. So that there could theoretically be no upper limit, but that didn't feel consistent with the way our regs had worked in the past. So I went through and proposed in each district either cloned the previous dwelling density or gave some thought to the fact that we're promoting opportunities for more dwelling units in a building on a site, and perhaps we should slightly increase the number of dwelling units permitted in a zoning district, and the unit is typically dwelling units per acre. So I have my existing and I have the proposed, and the easiest thing to do is just, sort of compare the two of them and see that there's some minor increases in some districts to acknowledge that we are opening up some districts for multi-unit development. So that's kind of the general idea, but I would like to have, conceptually, I'd like to have an upper limit. And not just depend on the site constraints to be that upper limit. We haven't talked in depth about this, when Mike and I were sort of doing this. Other communities depend on lot coverage, the percentage of the lot that may be covered. I had done some research and investigated found some sense of lot coverage in the village, in village residential, had some numbers. And I think that you might have reflected that, like the 80% was a number that I had found here in the village as sort of the max coverage for one of the developed sites here. But I think dwelling unit per acre has some merit, and haven't hashed it out with Mike, but I propose that we include a line that addresses that. And so I just slipped a line in one of these tables that would have, dwelling density units per acre.
So for discussion, but this is again, one of those issues we want to make sure people have clear guidance about. So if it's really not clear, it makes it harder to write a permit, to apply for a permit, for one. It makes it harder for the zoning administrator to know how to review it. So this is one of those things where you want to provide flexibility, but you also want to have clarity. So I don't think we have a particular proposal. I think, Pip, you're just trying to help us understand.
I
this
have a
is-
draft, I mean, I have a proposal,
Yeah.
I'm suggesting some slight tweaks. Also, I don't know whether you're gonna want to get into it, but I thought the multiple use district, which is now a 2 acre district, was a lot like those districts that are close to sewer and water and are 1 acre. So I was thinking that I don't think there's a lot of benefit in having that be a 2 acre minimum lot size. I thought we could reduce it to the 1 acre. There's a little bit of unit discrepancy. We talk in some places about acreage, and in other places we talk about square footage. And we're using rounded square footage as a convenience, because an acre is 43,560. So we're talking about 40,000 square foot. So just for what it's worth, I've noticed in some other towns that the new Rockingham regs are sort of sitting on the fence between square footage and acreage, deciding on what units to use, so.
Needs to pick.
I also did look at some of the density recommendations in the new Rockingham regs. It was fun to read the district descriptions and, using the best of my memory, think about what parts of Bellows Falls or Rockingham they were talking about, and whether the fabric there was similar to stuff that we have here in the village. And in some cases, it is. And the density suggestions that they're carrying in their draft, I didn't think were very far off from where we have settled. And this was really built on our earlier set of density recommendations, but even my slight tweaks to allow a little more density in some of the districts. So it's a draft. We need to talk about it, see what the implications are. And also, we haven't really had a chance to talk about lot coverage as a development constraint and whether those numbers make sense.
So that we'll take that under advisement. We're gonna talk to Mike further about it, but it is helpful to look at other towns. I think Rockingham took like 6 years to 8 years to put their zoning regs together. So they had a lot of time to think about these things.
Yeah, I also referenced Brattleboro. Not all of Brattleboro zoning districts reference a density of dwelling unit per acre,
Okay.
but many of them do. And those that have, I think, a neighborhood description that is not too different than ours,
Yeah.
seem to be in the same vicinity for that density.
So this last column, max density, is really where, the others are sort of doing the math, and the last column called max density, and your table is sort of the addition, in a sense. Sort of
Yeah, just doing the
that
math.
really that's the math, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it turns out to be.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to help people understand, including myself, what's different, and we'll be digging further into this. Okay. Any comments, questions? Wish us luck, okay, thank you. We work through that. Before we jump into the forest block, this conversation research plan, any other comments or questions, many of you, about the rest of the work that we need to do? I think we're just gonna try to make it as transparent as we can. I think our November meeting needs to be the place where we're very clear where we're landing. Thanks. So I think we're still in the midst of it, so it's hard for me to be a whole lot clearer.
Yeah, there are issues to discuss if you want to throw them out on the table.
No,
but
because
they're-
I think we have to
Yeah.
clear them.
Right, okay, it's in a much finer level of discussion. And they become Some of them are policy related, some of them are administratively related.
Yeah. I think our broad guidelines are the goals we set out, for the ZBM. And we want to promote more housing in the areas where it's appropriate. We want to make the process easier on both sides for the applicant as well as the town. We want to make sure the natural resources are protected in the midst of all of that. And we want it to be as clear as it can be for ease of administration. So those are sort of guidelines for how we're going to work, as well as that it will hold up in court. I always have to hold up in court, and that's where the attorney's comments are helpful.
I did recall that I've edited the document to include the recommendations from the advisor at the Water Quality Division of its layers of departments, but in any case, asking about an appropriate process for a small community to address wellhead protection areas. And there was explicit language that I was provided with, and I've included into the reg. You guys haven't had a chance to look at it because I haven't disseminated that, but not profound, a slight difference in process, and it's one that Karen, I think, will have the most to say about.
So we'll be doing a deep dive on things. I would say that we get to the next meeting, I think we'll try to highlight things that we think where it would be good to have particular input, because it'll be too much to do, but we'll try to have that all clearly in a document. We'll see what we can do. Our next meeting is November 4th, I think it is. So that's what we need to do. All right, then let's talk about stage 2 and what we're going to talk about at the October 14th meeting. You can see from this conversation, it's really hard to talk further about a lot of the stage 1 things because we're not at a point where it's clear. We already provided an overview as best we could last week. And the best use of the time is to make sure that we have a way forward on stage 2 that addresses the community concerns and builds a dialogue.
Forest walk stage 2.
That's what that is. Stage is forest block, stage 2. So you will see that the agenda for next week, that is a draft document here, would have us just providing a brief update on the zoning bylaw project for anybody who is new, but really brief about what we're doing, why, and reference that there's material they can look at from past meetings, but to spend the time largely on the forest blocks, talking about why they're important. I have wondered, for example, of inviting Andrew, who hasn't yet joined our meeting here tonight, to provide the kind of presentation he provided at the focus group back in July, which was a what and why. It's important. We could try to see if Jens could be available to do that, but Andrew is very capable and knowledgeable to do that. And then to talk about how the town plan has directives relative to this. What are they and why? And then I thought we would get into talking about a draft research plan, this document here, to get folks input about, are these the questions we should be asking? Are there additional questions we should be researching? Where can we look for information? What are examples that we might look at? What should the public engagement process look like, across this? We will have a project advisory committee, but what else? So to really probe this stage 2 plan, out of it would then be developing a work plan. This is not a work plan yet. This is just ideas of what we will do. So that's my thought. And it would be very helpful to have feedback at this meeting if that's the kind of discussion we should have next week. And then I would like to dive into the research plan itself and get some feedback on that, how it might evolve as a document for discussion next week, or it might just go out the way it is, which, it's give you some feedback. Does everybody need a few minutes to look at it? Would that be useful? Do you want me to go over it? I think I'll give you all a few minutes to look at it.
What's the distinction between sort of objectives and kind of actions?
The actions will be a more detailed way of how we're, how we're gonna do it. So, number one, for example, objective is document relevant lessons from other Vermont communities. So there'll be tasks to do that. How are we gonna do that? Now, we already have a packet of things that Ann Carey's already given me. But we probably need to know which communities have been doing it and find some way of collecting that information and presenting it in a learning, for learning purposes. So, that will be, the objective is to document that. How are we going to do it is the task, right? It's not written yet.
Oops, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Outcomes means hoped for, wished for.
Yeah,
outcomes.
if we're successful,
If we're successful, these are
these
the
are the
outcomes we're
things,
looking for.
that's right. It's, where do we wanna be at the end? And then the objectives are, well, how are we gonna get there in a high level way? We're gonna document lessons learned, what are the zoning options? We're only looking at one so far, overlay district, should be looking at others, there are others to look at. We need to then assess land use impacts of the reg options, what would they do, what would they not do? In terms of our goals. How would they affect land parcels? How would they limit forest block fragmentation? But, that's a desired outcome. So and maybe it's just all too dense.
One comment that, or one thing that I guess I would like clarity on is looking at the overall project schedule for the zoning bylaws modernization meeting or project. I think it's really important to get feedback and help develop the forest block part 2.
Yes,
But I'm wondering, this particular community meeting number 3, I guess I don't want the rest of the project to get sidelined. And if we're only giving that 15 minutes or so to say, this is all of the rest of the work that we're doing, isn't this the meeting that is supposed to be getting final input from the community so that we can finish it up to
yeah.
present to the select board? And it seems like it's,
Mhm.
like all of the rest of the work that it's been done, it's like, okay, we've done this, now we're just gonna move on. So I'm wondering about the weight that we give to each part of that process within this meeting.
Yeah. It's a great question, Vanessa, and I would say, a couple of things about how I'm thinking about this and why I propose this way. The greatest interest in the community so far is on the forest block. That is the pulse, that's what people showed up last week. And they're looking forward to more of a conversation about it. And so it's important to follow where public interest is and not ignore it. And I'm thinking, well, why don't we dive into that, learn more about it, and then we're gonna put that aside because we have to finish stage 1. Right, but we do need to go to stage 2, but now that we have people's interest in that, let's hear it, let's use that to create a plan, and then we're gonna come back and really move it forward after January. Because we need now focus all our resources on finishing what we call stage 1. So we're not so the second thing I'll say is we're not ready to show up at a meeting next Tuesday to say, these are all the changes we have in mind. You just heard that we're not there. We're behind schedule on that. And I think we did the best we can already last week. I think we did that. I don't think there's a lot more we can put on the table. at this point.
In terms of phase one of the
The
project.
phase one of the project. I think we did that last week. So I don't have content ready to post on Thursday this week. Other than what I put here. Again, we can still, we have the presentation from last week about the overview of what we're doing. We can do a light version of that, the meeting, just to say these are the topics. But to really use the conversation for the thing people are very interested in, get that input and we need it to write the work plan versus how do we reassemble people at another juncture to do that? Let's strike while the iron's hot on that one. And let's finish our work on stage one. And it does put a lot more on the hearing process. I think that's what the result of it is. We could slide another month, but we're already out of resources to do the project. So we have to wrap up, the best we can. And so I'm thinking it's not a good use of the meeting next week. We don't have anything new to present. But we do need to have a pathway forward for stage two. It would be good to get input on that, and then we'll use that. And I'm even thinking we will reform the advisory committee for that, and maybe other people want to come to the table on that. I think we asked people to show up through December this year. And I really believe that you need to honor that when you ask people to do that. And then maybe other people who could come in to inform the forest block forest block preservation policy is what I call it. Because it may not be an overlay district, we don't know.
Yeah.
I
I guess I'm wondering what any other committee
Yeah.
members or commission members might think about that, because, I definitely have come into this project halfway. And a lot of work has been done already up to this point. But just want to make sure that the work on all of the phase one part has been honored, and that sentiment that we seem to be mostly done and is just kind of putting it together and presenting a final draft is all that's left to do, but that the community buy-in part of it has been accomplished. Is that a shared sentiment?
Well, and what else is there to do, really, at
Right.
this point? I mean, honestly, I think that's a good question you're asking, Vanessa. We haven't had a huge turnout in these meetings.
Yeah.
But people show up for the issues they're interested in.
Sure.
They showed up in the forest block because that mattered, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're hitting the mark largely on the housing improvements that we're making. It's now deep in the details, which I think is even hard to talk about at this meeting.
Sure.
Let alone a big public meeting. So I think we have to just do our work and get it done. I'm interested if people think we should spend more, we could delay this project and have another community meeting.
Go back to the forest block.
Not about the forest block, but on the stage one, on the housing, administrative improvements, those issues, those topics.
I'd like to just have time to continue working. The pace is, it's slowish. Now that we have a little bit of more time with Mike, that's gonna be quite beneficial. But, as a unpaid citizen planner, it just takes me a long time. And, I need those hours. So I'd like to just continue sort of plodding away, addressing these attorney questions. There are 4 or 5 sort of open-ended issues that we've been discussing all along that we haven't completely nailed down. But it's just gonna take a lot of hours, but I don't feel that there's anything so significant that it's going to require public support. At this point, it's just nuts and bolts, and there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
But I think we've talked about the major changes, already with the public in the presentations that we later.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So
Just wanted
I'd
to
also
make sure.
like to sort of not have to focus on the forest block overlay district planning too much at this point unless it's, you know, what you've done here is very thorough and very comprehensive. I don't know what the next steps are, you know, but to get sort of a committee together and begin to brainstorm and, you know, and now we'll do this and that will inform the next one. And, you know, because it's really a lot of information gathering that I think is going to give us a perspective. One of the starting points here is that there's an assumption that the town plan and the state goals of having forest blocks preserved is a shared view in town. I think that conceptually it might be, but as soon as it affects an individual landowner's sensibilities about their right to do what they want on their land, then it's no longer an area of wide consensus. So that's sort of suggested in here, but it's affected landowners understand how the forest block preservation zoning regulations affect their land parcels as well as the process, et cetera. So I think it's maybe a prelude to that is to get widespread buy-in to the concept.
Yes,
I think
Yes.
that's listed as one of the outcomes.
those are the
Number five.
outcomes. That's what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, the outcomes are that landowners will understand that and.
Yeah.
You know, and we will never get 100% buy-in. When you're making a
Right.
change, there's going to be some people who won't go along with it. It's just the reality. I mean, I'm sure when zoning regs were first adopted, there wasn't 100% consensus in Putney to do that, right?
It's this last one, 5. I mean, if we can get to 5, we will
Yeah.
have accomplished a lot.
That's what I'm
because-
looking for.
Because 4 simply is notifying the landowners, you know, engaging them in how a preservation reg might affect them. It doesn't mean that they would be happy with it or even accept the idea that
Right.
they should be, you know, impacted by a reg. So it's really, how do we get to 5? And then
Right.
I mean, I guess it feels like there's a focus here on reaching some consensus about the merits of forest block preservation that might need to be elevated in its focus.
Okay. So an outcome is that the need for forest block preservation is widely understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm adding that. Again.
like
it's widely
understood and
doesn't
supported.
mean
or
Everybody
something, you know,
supports it, but it's widely understood, you know, it's like the case has been presented. It's not a
Yeah.
mystery.
But as we heard, you know, I don't know why I'm feeling like it's gonna be a big jump, because as we heard at that meeting, there were people in support of the general idea, but they really don't want to talk about how it will, they don't want to have any constraints on their.
That's right,
individual-
but I'm hoping the process will have a conversation, we will possibly come to some very innovative ideas, especially when we find out the number of parcels are not that many. And, you know, the information leads to creativity, that's all I can say, people will begin to see it
Okay.
differently.
Okay.
I felt like that meeting was useful in the sense that it allowed people to get out the reflexive no, you know, the don't tell me what to do. But then it also opened the door for listening to,
Right.
and invited engagement. So in that sense, that it was a really important part of the process because it started people through the process of consideration, if that makes sense.
It does.
Good, I'm making some changes
I still
here,
regret I wasn't there.
yeah. It was a good airing, you know, yeah. So, okay, I think we've answered the question you've had, Vanessa, which was a good one. Is there more community education to do on stage 1? I think we've done what we can do.
Great, as long as we feel comfortable with that, I'm good.
Yeah, I think there's general support for what we're trying to do. And the details are beyond most people. I mean, sometimes I feel they're beyond me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's really very specific. So it's really helping them understand what we're doing.
And I think one or two
The
things
intent
will
about
come up in the future, as we resolve all of these issues, we'll be able to share the last final thoughts about
Yeah.
the impact, so.
Yeah,
Sue, who's not here from the advisory group?
a lot of people.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Oliver couldn't be here because he's
Right.
away. Doug Grant couldn't be here because he's away. Adam Hubbard couldn't be here, he's away. Karen, is on vacation.
Karen.
Astley
Oh, yeah.
is on vacation. We have not had Nancy Olson here very much. She has a standing conflict on Tuesday, so she hasn't been here.
Is Matt, never mind. Matthew, is he on the group?
No, Matthew Hoffman.
You're right.
He was in housing. So those are largely the people who are, Peter is here tonight, Brian is here, you're here. But the others couldn't, and there's two members, both Eleni and Nancy have not really attended any of the meetings. Because they just can't. So I've met with Eleni and she was hoping to get more involved, and I don't think it fits with her world.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading the last process
Yeah.
sections in 5 and 6.
Yeah.
They're very explicit about, the outcome will be a forest block preservation zoning regulation. And I'm wondering whether it can be, changed to language that kind of opens up to, I assume that it's probably gonna be a zoning regulation, but I don't know for a fact. Redistricting and having different district descriptions, so there may be some other methods.
Could I call it land use policy? Would that be
Yeah.
better?
Yeah, that's very nice.
Great, this is helpful. Language matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we're saying we think we have a good idea, but we now want to go right to the heart of it and look at other alternatives.
I'm saying we're looking at alternatives.
Yeah,
mean,
then I
we
think
don't
that's
know that
great.
This is the right thing.
Yeah, that's great. That was good.
Yeah.
Instant
Great, I'll
brainstorm.
make sure that change gets made through. I'll have that lens.
Good. Yeah, and I think this is a really great start, and thanks for doing all that work. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, well, so my plan would be then to have again a what and why, forest block, why it matters. The presentation that Andrew gave at the focus group in July. With that, we can just talk about, I can have a handout about forest block directives in the town plan so people can just see where that is and what that is. We mostly have that already, that would be hard to create. For the discussion about research plans, is it best just to have it in the larger room? Now, this is the time where you could have people broken into two groups, for example, because more people could say things. If you break it out, but I have this right now as one discussion, and that's a decision to make, and I opened up, I have no idea how many people are coming. We do have next stage, which gives us space to break out and talk if we wanted to.
I think it's a good idea to break out into smaller groups if you're looking for input on
Mhm.
research plans. Yeah, and because then you get more people talking, and you get more people having the space to express what they're interested in, what they feel like impacts them.
Thank you, Vanessa. Other thoughts, whether we stay in one group or break it in? I'm gonna say probably two groups, because I'm not sure we can manage more than two. I'm not sure if people can.
There were a lot of cars here at the last meeting. How many people were in here? Was it pretty packed?
Well, it was actually at Yellow Barn,
Oh, that's right.
but it was a total of 45 people,
Uh-huh.
which is a good turnout. And it was, and people who were engaged.
Yeah.
It was in one room. And that worked pretty well, actually. It did work well. Partly because we were presenting against stage one, all the things we were doing, and there was no breakout group where people could answer the questions very well. Pip and I had a hard time answering questions from the whole group. But this one, you could break into small groups and people could talk about it. Rye or Peter, are your thoughts, what are your thoughts about the meeting next Tuesday? What would you suggest?
I always think they're good. If we have enough people to make them happen, because we can get, a lot of data that way about how people are thinking about things. I'm also just admittedly having a hard time processing today, so I'm keeping quiet because I'm very slow at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough, Ryan. Well, sorry if I'm putting you too much on the spot, but thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree though. I think groups are a good idea and might help people come to a consensus if they're, some folks are a little more uneasy than others. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking is, this is quite a lot in terms of the research plan. It
Yeah.
goes in a lot of different directions. And so what small groups can help do is they can help focus and kind of distill what are the most important pieces of this research plan where the focus needs to be
Right.
and to prioritize what's important. And you might get that kind of better through triangulation in small groups rather than just hearing the loudest people talk in a
Yeah.
large group.
Yeah, I always had 3 questions that I try to give to these conversations to allow them to be their own, but to sort of give it a direction. And what about this makes sense to you? What here seems solid and good, we should include it in here. The next question is, what's missing? Is there something that should be in here that's not, what? And then the last question is, what else would improve it? And that allows people to say what they need to about it, and it keeps it on a positive trajectory. So that would be my thought, to give it that, and I could be prepared to do 3 groups, if I have enough people. Vanessa, if you would be willing to do that, and somebody join you, a member of the committee will try to find somebody who would do that. I can lead one. Mike, we don't know if this is something yet that you can fit into your 40 hours, right? I mean, I think we need to talk about that further.
I think it's gonna be mainly about the part 2 forest block. I don't know that it makes much sense.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. We're gonna need you to finish up part 1, so. Andrew, welcome. We see that you've joined us. And if you're able to, speak to us, we would like to do that now. I know you're also, on dad duty this evening.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So we're just in the part of the meeting where we're preparing for next week's community meeting. We've decided that we are going to use the agenda largely that I've put out for comment, which is to focus on the Forest Block Research Project, provide a little update about the modernization project, but just reference the materials and things from last week's meeting, and not to try to rehash that so much. And then talk about why the Forest Block Stage 2 project, mainly for the purpose of informing a detailed plan that we will move forward. And people are interested today, let's get their input, so that we can create that final plan. And that would be a major outcome of that meeting. We then need to really, at least Pip and I with Mike McConnell, need to really focus in on the stage 1 stuff so that we can actually have bylaws and subdivision regulations ready for hearing. And so we'll get this input for stage 2, make use of it, and then put it aside, because we need to focus on stage 1. We don't have enough bandwidth to do these at the same time. But people are interested, the topic is hot, let's do this, let's get the input. People who might want to be on the advisory committee, what else could make the plan work? So that's what we're thinking, and we're thinking, I want to put your hand up, Andrew, and I don't know if you're available Tuesday, to do the presentation on forest blocks that you gave, for example, at the focus group meeting in July.
Yeah, I guess. I felt like that was a pinch hit kind of situation. Would it be worth taking a second stab at getting somebody from the state to step into that role or not?
We could ask, it's, only a week's notice, but you never know until you ask.
To me, it doesn't feel like, unless they really understood what the point of this meeting is, this is a planning meeting to sort of look forward about how we're gonna address these issues.
Right.
If there's someone at the state that can help us with our own planning around these issues, that might be helpful. But to go back over what it is and why you would have it, et cetera, it seems like, if that's the conversation, it's not gonna be helpful from the state.
Right, so that's not the best use of them, rather we give the presentation to the public, who still needs to know why this is important. I mean, we did that at the focus group, but there's a lot of people who were not at that meeting.
I kind of think that where you said what is missing,
Yeah,
the forest is a player.
yeah,
Or the forest is a character. The
Yeah.
forest is a person equivalent,
mm-hmm,
and it
Yeah.
has to speak for itself.
mm-hmm,
There's nobody speaking for the forest, really. I'm not, it's really easy to sentimentalize that.
yeah,
I'm allergic to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is not about what people want, it's about what the forest needs.
Yeah.
To survive.
Yeah.
And that's where a presenter
yeah.
can
Well,
have
that's what,
an impact.
were you at the focus group in July?
At Landmark?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So the presentation that Andrew gave on behalf of Yams, we basically used the state's slides. I'm basically saying, can we do that again? Because this is a different
You
group.
can't do it too much.
Yeah.
I don't think,
Yeah, so that's what the overview of what and why
because
is.
so much of this is about, how's this gonna impact me, what makes me nervous
But
here?
the protecting forest blocks would be a presentation in itself.
Mhm.
That's the forest speaking, why this is important.
Yes,
There was that 8 different reasons why and,
okay, I don't remember any of it,
Yeah,
but.
yeah. but, so I hear you, Andrew, about could someone from the state do it?
Right, I understand, I know that it was a pinch hit, Andrew, but I thought you did a great job.
There you go.
So-
Thank you.
Um,
I thought you did too, and people know you
Mhm.
as a forester. You're not a bad voice for the forest, honestly.
and I also think that you spoke to it very well at the last meeting at, Yellow Barn as well, too.
Well, thank you all for that. Sure, I will agree. This is, what's the date? Sorry.
Next Tuesday.
July 6/25.
It's the 14th. Okay. So I think he needs to think about it, but he wants to do it, so let's see if he can figure out how to do it. He is on dad
He's
duty.
agreed to do it.
Is he agreed? I think so.
It's different.
I wanna hear from
We
him.
agreed him.
Yes, he was one of the.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think I'll break this into a discussion. I'll make this like ABC will be for discussion. I'll just make that a different item. But the presentation will be a thing and then we'll break into discussion.
This is the what and why part of it.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
it'd be, yeah, and I don't know, I think I might allow the what and why and the forest block directives maybe be part of Andrew's part of the like presenting it and what is this? And then the forest block, the draft research plan would be a topic in itself. Yeah, okay, make that the breakout. Okay, a learning together and then discussion about the research plan as a separate thing. And try to give it enough time so that people really can contribute. And I will ask people to come back briefly to just say things, but many people will leave. So if we can have a report out, that is a helpful thing. Wrap it up. So I'll add a report out. Peter, will you join us next week, next Tuesday, or is this not on your rate, not something you can do?
I am unavailable next Tuesday. I'm gonna be out of state.
That's fine. And I know this is not your particular topic. I appreciate that. So,
Yeah, it is following up on what Lisa said, is a very important topic, but you're right. I'm a little less in the weeds on forest blocks.
yes, yeah. Okay. All right, well, I'll come up with a plan for who's gonna manage the conversation. Great, I'll make some changes to the research plan, the language changes to open this up a little bit more to land use policy. And adding an outcome that the need for this is widely understood in the community, so I'll add that in the outcomes. And I'll create a framework for the discussion groups. I'm not planning to put the forest block overlay district out for comment. I mean, it exists, people can find it, but I think that's a distraction because it's one specific idea, and I want to step back and say there may be other ways to do this. And we don't even know what they are yet. Okay. And I'll say we might even invent something that doesn't exist, and then that's okay. 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 All right, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any other comments, suggestions they want to offer about next week? Okay. I will be looking for people to help me set up. It's a lot of work to do. I'll do most of it, but I always welcome that. I'm one person. Okay, what else is on our agenda for tonight then? Thank you all for that. We have we'll keep it at the wrap. Yes. Next steps on project schedule. I did put on the back side of the agenda for I'm just saving papers. For the 14th, the rest of the schedule. I just want to call your attention that I have put on here Wyndham Regional closing out the project. We're going to have a different date for that. We now found more money, so that is different. And a new task is largely for the planning commission with Wyndham Regional Commission's input to actually prepare the draft bylaws and subdivision regs for public hearing. So that's a big project to be done by November, and I assume we're gonna have to work together on that. So I don't think 40 hours is gonna do that. Okay. So the dates are largely the same. The only thing, no, it's all the same. We're gonna be, it will be big to meet this project schedule, but we will. Questions, comments? All right, I will be giving a presentation to the select board next Wednesday. That will be my next scheduled select board briefing, and I'll bring them up to date. I will put the minutes together from this meeting and the action items. And unless there's any final comments. Okay, and I just want to thank those of you who did show up today, and I want to do a very special thank you to Pip, who is carrying a lot to get the zoning regs done, and you are doing it as a citizen, as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it, Pip. It's big, and it's a pleasure to work with you. I'm learning a lot. I didn't know anything about this.
Getting a sash, I think I was
There you go.
supposed to be quiet, but
Yeah, I think you get a cap over
oh,
there.
that'd be very, very nice. But, just to clarify, Tuesday, October 14th, 6:30 to 8:30, the location is now next stage,
It's
right?
next stage, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, Yellow Barn could not be available next week, so.
Yep.
And for folks that might be available to help you set up what time is a good time to arrive.
It would be very good to have help, at 5:45. Because I want to be ready at 6:15 to welcome people. I need a half hour. I'm not planning to do refreshments this time. I think that was kind of a distraction,
I agree.
so we'll have a meeting.
So does it happen in the risers or does it happen on?
The main meeting will happen in the risers, and when we do breakouts, we'll use the community room downstairs. So we'll use first floor and second floor.
So what is setting up?
Setting up, does mean getting the downstairs ready and then be ready to greet people.
I mean, I'm happy to help. I'm just not much used to plugging things in and screens and.
Right. See, I need to spend time with, the AV team. We should look at the same people who were, it's Colin again, who is at the Yellow Barn.
But if it's pushing chairs around, I can.
Yeah, some chairs and just making sure materials are out.
Can you translate Dutch?
No, I know people who can.
Yeah.
There's
and-
two of them.
And it's real support for me, because I know other people there to set up, then I feel like I can relax a little bit and get the AV.
So you said 5:45.
5:45 is a great time to show up so that we're ready at 6:15. I just need a half hour.
I want to be sure I can actually do this.
I will give direction. I will have material. It's easy to set up this room. I mostly do this on my own. I get here at 5:45. Mike always helps with Barry, and he shows up early, but I know how to do this. It's a small room at next stage. It's 2 floors. Apart. Yeah, okay. I want to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you all very much for your participation today. And we'll put a wrap on this for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.